Hey there, welcome to My Green Pets. I am William Green, and I am an orchid lover. There are 26,000 plus species of orchid and hundreds of thousands of hybrids, and they are such a challenge. If you love plants, orchids are just so much fun. Can be frustrating, but also very fun. We're looking at My Green Pets, which is my collection of orchids that I keep at a greenhouse, and I rent this space actually. And so today we're going to look at a couple of different plants and just see what's going on with my collection. The first thing we're looking at here is this Bulbophyllum Wendlandianum. Sorry, wait for it. And it is blooming. It's got three little flowers on it right now, and it's such a nice little Bulbophyllum. Flowers are about, I don't know, 10-15 centimeters long. The little ruffles blow in the wind, attracting flies, and it has kind of a fishy fragrance. But it's just really striking because the flowers are so unusual looking, but they also are long and skinny, and that's something that I really look for in orchid flowers. I really love long, skinny orchid flowers. And this is a relative of the one I just showed you. This is Bulbophyllum echinolabium, and it's actually got two growths pushing out. And that is exciting because that means that the plant will start growing in two different directions, and that generally means that the plant's doing pretty well. So that's good. I also wanted to show you my neighbor's plant. This is my neighbor Joe. He rents the space next to me. His Instagram is Perpetual Irish if you are interested in checking his stuff out. He's got a cousin of my Bulbo echinolabium. This is Bulbophyllum carunculatum. And you can see it grows very similarly. He's got two spikes on his, and look at all the flower buds pushing out. You can see like 4 pushing out already. So this plant seems to be a bit more floriferous than my echinolabium. So it's nice having neighbors in the greenhouse with cool plants. So Joe, I'm really excited about your carunculatum blooming. Now in the past couple weeks I've been showing you this, actually past couple months I've been showing you this Bulbo antinifrum because its new growths were rotting off. So, but as you can see here, it's got 3 new growths pushing out. 1, 2, 3, left, middle, and right. And what did I do? Well, there was a bunch of moss in there, and I think it was the new growth that was saying too wet, and it was rotting. So I repotted it, got rid of all the moss. Now it's just in bark, and it's doing a lot better. It looks like those new root growths are going to make it. So, fingers crossed. Got a couple other Bulbophyllums I want to look at. This is Bulbophyllum medusa. It blooms in the fall and winter, so right now it's primo growing season. It's got lots of new leaves. This is another Bulbo. This is Lovely Elizabeth, and it's got several growths on it. And what I'm pointing to actually is not Lovely Elizabeth. This is Rufinum. This is the species. And the flowers on this one aren't particularly impressive, but Lovely Elizabeth has really nice flowers. And if you kind of look back through my videos or Instagram posts, you'll see pictures of this plant in blooms. Really spectacular flowers. Doesn't bloom every year, but when it does, it really is super nice. Now this little guy is a Vanda falcata, and it's from Japan, East Asia. Got wonderful little sprays of flowers, but these are actually quite popular because of their leaves. They just have a very sculptural look to them. They put out multiple growths, and they're really popular in Japan, where people have bred them over the years to create all kinds of different varieties. And it actually, one of my neighbors in the greenhouse again has quite an interesting collection of these Vanda falcata. And he's gotten them all from Orchids Limited up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And you can just kind of see the variety. Some of them are variegated, some of them have skinny leaves, some of them have shorter, stubbier, fatter leaves. But there are orchid growers that only grow this particular orchid because there's so many different types. Now looking at my slipper orchids, I've got a couple in bud here. This is Paf callosum. And it's looking like it's going to have some really nice color. It's got some green along the petals and then kind of red and maybe even some white on the dorsal sepal there. That's super exciting. It should be blooming very soon. Can't wait to see what it looks like. Next to it, this is Paf tonsum, and it's got a colorless bloom. I mean, it's just this green color, so I have a feeling that when it opens up, there won't be a whole lot. Maybe some yellows in there, but should be a nicely textured slipper, very waxy. And of course, these slippers are not only have beautiful flowers, they also have beautifully mottled foliage as well. Now these two up top, larger ones, these are multifloral slipper orchids, and they're not doing very well. They're not growing the way that I would like for them to grow. This one particularly, this is a Paf Michael Kopovitz, and it's got, it looks like rot, basically, and this is the newest growth on it too, so it's not good news to see rot on the newest growth on the plant. It does have another growth coming out from the older growth, so maybe that's in response to the rot, I'm not sure, but I wish they were doing better. Now this little Paf has really impressed me. This is a species, it's Appletonianum, and believe it or not, this guy has been in bloom since the end of February. So March, April, May, 3 full months this thing's been in bloom. Now the flower has faded, the color has faded quite a bit since it first opened, but I'm impressed that it's been attached on there, looking nice for so long. Okay, this little group of 4 orchids, these are Catasetum type orchids, and those weird shaped bulbs act as camel humps. They store water and nutrients while these plants undergo a pretty severe dry season. And in cultivation, they benefit from not being watered until the new growth has got a sufficiently developed root system. So what I'm showing you here are some of the roots that these plants are putting out. And you can see that they can put out quite a few roots. They're kind of meandering through the dry moss here on their search for moisture. And these particular plants have not been watered at all since January. So that's quite a while, a good 5 months they haven't received any water. And the pseudobulbs, for the most part, are looking pretty good. This little guy I've had the longest. I've had him since 2015, early 2015. This is Mormodia Jumbo World, and it's putting out lots of nice little roots. And the pseudobulbs are still looking nice and plump, so I'm not going to water him. Going to let those roots grow out quite a bit more. Now this guy is Cycnotus Wine Delight, and it started growing a good month before the other 3, and the roots are really well developed. There's lots of them. I even saw a couple poking out the bottom of the pot. And what I've noticed is that the pseudobulbs are pretty wrinkled. They are not plump at all. When I squeeze on them, they feel very soft. And so this guy is actually going to be pulled out from under the no water tent and mixed with the other plants, and now it's just going to get regular watering, and hopefully it's going to grow well this season. Another plant that undergoes a winter dormancy is this. This is a Malaxis latifolia. Got it from Carter and Holmes Orchids a few years ago, actually, and it has that, you can see that pseudobulb just stuck in the medium. That's all that it was over the winter. So this new green growth that you see is just pushed up over the last couple of months, and it will actually be blooming soon. In the middle of that growth, there is a flower spike that looks like a red hot poker. It's purple and white. I'm showing you the roots here. And it's just kind of an unusual orchid, not something you see too often. And that bulb actually put out a new, smaller bulb late last season, and so I separated it. And I don't know if you can see closely. If you look at the base of that little bulb, you can see that it actually has a new growth pushing out that as well. Now, I don't know how big this teeny tiny thing will get in one season, but I'm definitely going to be getting rid of this guy when he gets to a certain size. Probably maybe give him away as a gift or something. Let's move on to my Cattleya collection. This is the bulk of my orchid collection because I got this flask of 25 seedlings 5 years ago now, and they are just now getting to the point where they look like some of them might start blooming. And on that note, let's actually take a look at this one up close. In that newest growth, I recently spied a flower sheath. So that's a great sign. Now, this plant isn't my healthiest of the Cattleya seedlings, but it certainly seems to be doing well enough to be putting out that flower sheath. So who knows, it might bloom. If you look at the roots of that same plant, you'll see that the roots don't look that great, and that's why I say it's not one of the healthiest. A problem that I've had with these Cattleyas since I got them is little bush snails, the same snails that all orchid growers have in their pots, you know. And unless you figure out a way to get rid of them, please let me know. But they eat the roots off like crazy. But they only choose certain plants. Look at this one. This one has got roots growing out all over the place and are fine. But then some of the other ones, the snails go straight forward, and as soon as they try to put out a new root, they get chewed off. So that's really frustrating, really annoying. Several of these plants would have been much bigger if their roots had been left alone. But in fact, the ones that have the healthiest roots are the ones that I mounted 4 years ago, and they have grown nice, big, white, juicy roots with no problems. And I never see snails on the mountains for some reason. I guess they're too dry and they just don't want to be. It's easier to hide in a pot, perhaps. But yeah, I'm thinking of this summer just pulling all of them out of their pots and mounting them all. Alright guys, well you know what, that is just about it for this week's edition of My Green Pets. I hope that you enjoyed looking over my collection, and hopefully maybe you learned something, or if you have a comment on something that you think that I would benefit from, please don't hesitate to leave that. I'm going to put the little tent back on the Catasetums, pop, like that. This is how I leave them, because the greenhouse has a watering system that I don't have any control over. So the only way I can make sure these guys stay dry is to cover them. So that's it, guys. I am so glad you stopped by. I'll try to update you. Actually, no, next week's going to be great. Next week, we're going to work on doing another orchid chat with Stephen Van Camp and Lewis. So please look forward to that. And so until then, take care. I'm William Green, and we'll see you later.